Hi, my name is Ivy Starnes, and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. And today we're talking about bridleless riding. So that was my quarter horse Jackson riding bridleless this past year. Actually, my husband Parker filmed that. And he wasn't my husband at the time, but he did film it. And I just wanted to show you that. I also have, today we're going to really be talking about book review, this book called Bridleless Riding, Using Positive Reinforcement by Claire Bruff. So that's really what kind of inspired this video is I have a bunch of books on my shelf that I haven't read. I'll be going through, reading them, and giving you the review, as well as showing you a little bit of footage of some of me riding bridles with my horses. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment below. I know we may not have a lot of viewers for this because it's not a super popular topic talking about just bridleless, but I want to get into the review for this first, and I do want to give a caveat. This book, it's really for if you want to do positive reinforcement and use treats and clicker training for doing this with your horse, this technique. Now, even if you never use clicker training or treats, there are some very valuable things in here, including stacking and thresholds that's worth anybody to read this, even if you just want a better idea of clicker training. Here's the pros about this book. It's short. It is, to the very last page, it is technically 100 pages long. So it's 100 pages long, so it's short, super easy to read, fairly written in a pretty fun way, very personal, writing right to the reader, which I liked. The humor was sometimes forced because it felt a little forced, but I'm picky about it. It really goes over the basics of clicker training. So if you've never known how or what the deal is, she goes over some really good tips for safety and everything. It's actually very comprehensive for beginners. It's not going to problem solve everything, but it does a very good job of an overview. But the thing, and also gives you some great exercises on the ground and the saddle to get started bridleless. I really like that. They're very simple, and like you could see the practical purpose of doing it right away. And it fits right in with what I do with the gaited horses because it's like head down, it's calm, it's everything like that, which I really, really love. So that was awesome. Some cons, there is not enough troubleshooting in the end. The first 70 pages are, let's see, no. Okay, so about the first 55 pages really are about prepping, clicker training, things like that. They're good things. I'm going to go through some quotes, but it doesn't actually give you a lot of problem solving. For example, it talks about how to have your horse walk with you and then how to get them to trot, but it doesn't problem solve when a lot of people struggle getting their horse to go faster than a walk. I've personally dealt with this and I want to talk about it, but she doesn't address it. It's sort of like she loses steam at the end and it needed another 20 pages to give you a few more troubleshooting for some simple things. So keep in mind, I do think it could use a part 2 or another couple chapters. I will let her know this. Maybe she'll edit the book and make a new one, but I really did like this book, and if you do want to get into bridleless riding at all, even if you don't want to use clicker training, you should definitely check this out, and especially if you want to do clicker training. definitely check this out. All right, I want to jump right in with some quotes because this is a book review video, and then we'll look at some bridleless riding. That's fun as well. So this is about, Claire writes this book. She said that she learned a lot of this with her horse Bella. She said about her horse, "We went on a long journey where I learned to tune into her so intently, and I finally understood that she wasn't there for me to use. She wasn't a machine that had no thoughts or feelings. She wasn't a robot that I could computerize to perform a sequence of patterns." And that's a great attitude, to know that you want to do the bridleless riding, not to show off, although that's fun, but it is there to help you with your relationship. And one thing it has personally taught me is to trust my horses so much more. For me to take the bridle off, even in an arena, and trust Jackson or trust Serenity or my horse Buck, it makes me trust them more. I don't have that crutch, that thing that I can pull really hard on and stop them if I need to. I have to trust them and actually spend the time training. She says, and this is addressing why you would do bridleless riding. She says, "I have many people telling me I'm so brave riding across Dartmoor without a bridle." She's from the United Kingdom. "They tell me that I must really trust my horse, but I'm here to tell you that it isn't all about trust. It is a little bit, but it isn't all about it. There is no magic spell." She says, "It isn't about this special gifted horse whisperer person." True. "There is no magic spell that you must recite 3 times, and the click of your little heels, voila, your horse is now bridleless, and off you go. It's about you must be committed to learning, growing, and never standing still in your thirst for knowledge, and being here tells me that that's what you're doing by reading this book. It is simply about the training and the time you put into it." And her exercises are so simple. Like, it's not like you have to do these exercises for a year before you get on, although some horses maybe, but it's simple exercises that you could get done in a month or 2 and actually start riding bridleless. But she talks about things like, where do you ride bridleless? How do you make sure you're safe? Okay, we've got some people watching. That's great. Let me know if you have any questions. I am going to go through a lot of this book. About this book, a lot of people tell me they can't go bitless, let alone bridleless, with their horse because it's crazy, too highly strung, or has too much of a mind of its own. The truth is, I believe every horse can go bridleless. And here's the big caveat and addendum that she adds, and I agree, but not every rider can. Every horse could be trained to go bridleless, but not every rider should do bridleless or bitless. Things you need for this to work is training, confidence in the training, and an understanding that control isn't part of that training. It's not about having absolute control of your horse. She says, "Whilst I give you the tools to get to a place where you can ride bridleless, it's up to you to put the time into the training and realize every single horse is different." Excellent point. So take these tools and use them, but be intuitive. Listen to the horse in front of you and respond according to their needs and thresholds in every given moment. This book is for anyone who would like to take the path down yonder to bridleless riding while delving lightly into positive reinforcement training along the way. It's for the person who wants the practical without the academic, who wants the short read, it's only 100 pages, without the heaviness that some books might bring. It's for the young and old, so come one, come all. And I really like that. She wants it to be approachable by every rider. I don't think she's this young, super athletic person who's doing this. She is a normal person who started riding her horses bridleless. She doesn't do demos and clinics and be in the bag fancy shows. She does it because she has a relationship with the horse, and she's not trying to sell you some big training package. This is a little book. It doesn't cost that much. I'm sure she's not making tons of money by sharing this information with you. So then basically she actually tells you kind of what's in it, a step-by-step guide on how to ride bridleless, an overview of positive reinforcement, talks about a dream, and some funny stories, and she gives really good examples with horses that she's used. I have a star, and it says, I love this right there. Well, you can't read it because it's out of focus. And I'm going to see what it says. For those of you who are just starting out with positive reinforcement training or have no idea what it is or how to incorporate into the training with your horse, I advise you to start at the beginning of the book. You'll find the very basics of training exercises you can teach your horse. Okay, so I like that she gives that caveat that if you already know how to do positive reinforcement and clicker, you could skim through. I do think it's super valuable. I benefited from reading through it, even though I knew all of the information. Okay, safety. She talks a lot about safety, and I really like that. And which actually all of this applies whether you have a bridle or not. She says, I trust my training. Just like some may train a horse to respond to a bit and pressure off the legs, I train mine to respond to voice cues, seat, and cordeo. And for anybody that doesn't know, cordeo is simply another name for neck rope. Bridleless riding isn't about what the horse is or isn't wearing on its face. It's about the rider looking at a variety of other factors, which we'll cover in the book. I love that. And she talks about things like stacking and thresholds. And I think we'd save so many people from getting into accidents if they'd pay attention to that. And we're going to get into that. So we got some really good piece of information. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I have a lot of this marked. Okay. Why should you train using, in this case, the positive reinforcement? And I love this. One of her answers is it gives the horse a voice. And of course, that training isn't going to appeal to everyone. Not everyone is going to want to do bridleless like this, and that's okay. So we're appealing to those people that want the horse to have a voice and be able to make a choice. Now, when I'm riding with the bridle, and there are times when I don't let the horse make a choice, like my safety. I don't want them to choose to run into the road or run off a cliff. But otherwise, in a lot of cases, like Liberty and some bridleless riding, I do allow the horse to make some choices. Now, why would you want to give a horse a choice? I'm going to read what she says because she says it really well. And I hope she forgives me for using all these quotes, but they're so good. Let's take the average horse and the average horse. The rider wants to exercise the horse on the lunge, and the horse doesn't get a choice. It's normal, right? It's pretty typical in our natural horsemanship world, our training. They start out with a head collar, also known as a halter, and the lunge line attached. The person tries to direct the horse in a circle to the right, but the horse just wants to come in and be with the person. The person then thinks that the horse just isn't getting it, so picks up a whip, or carrot stick, or dressage whip, and waves it around, which worries the horse. So the horse starts running around in a circle to get away from the whip. Also normal. We teach the horse to move away from pressure. The horse relaxes a little and slows down, but the person waves the whip around again, so the horse worries and speeds up with his head in the air. The person doesn't want the horse to run around with its head in the air, so they decide they should put the Pessoa on so the horse brings its head down. That's just a training device that you get the horse to pull on their head. When the horse doesn't realize the whole time, when the person doesn't realize that the whole time the horse is talking, but the person doesn't understand much. Like, how would I feel if I went to China and someone was yelling at you in a language you didn't understand and they just kept making it louder? It doesn't make sense. I don't know why I underlined that. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, the idea is that we give a horse a choice. It allows us to be more clear in our communication. We have Suzanne is watching from St. Louis. She's looking forward to the Alabama clinic. Hi, Shanna from Virginia. Hazel from Iowa. Zach is watching. Pamela from Collierville, Tennessee. Kelly from Arizona. And Janet said, I would love to ride bridleless. I'll settle for bitless to start. And a lot of these same things apply exactly to bitless. So don't be like, oh, I can never ride bridleless or I never want to, because it's super valuable for just learning to communicate with your horse, whether or not you're going to actually go bridleless. Let me keep going. She talks a lot about positive reinforcements, jackpots, teaching them not to mug, a lot of stuff that you've heard me talk about. She reiterates it and does a really good job with different stories. She talks about how doing Liberty and leaving the halter off while you're doing some of this training. So I really like this one. She says, when we're working with our horses, we want them to be in the most relaxed state possible because they will learn more effectively. So I love that because she talks about if your horse is uncomfortable away from the other horses, work them close to those horses. Don't take them away. If it's really windy out, pick the most comfortable spot for your horse. And we're going to go into that more in a minute, but I love that. So many people don't realize all the little cues that their horse is giving them or where they're comfortable or not comfortable. And that's why so many of us get into accidents. Like, why did your horse spook at the mailbox today but not yesterday? Who knows what's different? Maybe there's more wind. Maybe there's a weird smell in the air. Maybe the horse is a little bit sore today. All these things are called stacking, and she talks about that more, and we'll get to that. And it's super important as a rider, that you're aware of what happens when all of these things add up. The horse didn't just suddenly spook, or rarely. A lot of things added up to that moment, and you weren't paying attention. The horse showed you that they were nervous. Not always, right? There's always exceptions. But the horse showed you they were nervous and you ignored it and said, oh, they were fine yesterday. They've seen this before. But that doesn't make sense to the horse. It makes sense to humans, but not to a horse. She talks about how if you train the horses near other horses, the other horses will often learn, and I can vouch for that. And I've read many stories of the same thing happening. It's called alliomimetic, which is just a big word, make me sound impressive, but it's animals learning by watching other animals, and many species do it. Timing. One of the most important things when using clicker training is your timing. When I say timing, I mean that you have to mark or click the behavior exactly the right time, too soon or too late, and you risk training something you may not wish to train. It's always harder to untrain a behavior than to just get it right at the beginning. And then she goes through an example of training a horse to lift its leg. You could easily accidentally train a horse to paw at the ground rather than hold his leg up nicely for you. And it's very important to know the difference. You can read about that. She talks about rate of reinforcement, how many treats to feed per minute or per hour or second, or, it's very important to know about rate of reinforcement. Okay, then chapter 6, listening to horses. By making an effort to learn their language, we can better facilitate their life in this modernized world we expect them to live in and help keep our horses happy and safe. Who wouldn't want that? One of the biggest factors when using positive reinforcement training, or R+ training, is being mindful of your horse's emotional state. And I say that this is important whether you do Clinton Anderson, John Lyons, Richard Winters, Warwick Schiller. It doesn't matter who you follow. If you're not aware of your horse's emotional state, you're going to fail, and you're not doing your horse any favors. You're doing your horse a disservice if you're not paying attention to their emotional state. One of the most important things when using R+ training is to be mindful of your horse's emotional state. And the best way to do this is to learn about stress signals, thresholds, and body language. And she goes on to say there are many books and articles that talk about this. And she goes into it very briefly, but it's excellent. And the more research you do on this, the better. And she talks, this is the biggest one. No matter what kind of riding you do, whether you ever want to do bridleless, reading her chapter again and again about thresholds and stacking. So I'm going to give you an example. And she has a ladder here. So you see that? And I'm going to go ahead and read through some of it. So you start out. The horse is in the most relaxed state possible, which is in the field with his other buddies, relaxed. And then he's taken from the field. First, stressor. I think that's what she calls it. Or stimuli. It's a stressor or a stimuli. Is he's taken away from his buddies. Now, for some horses, that's a big deal. For some, it's less, but it's there. Ill-fitting saddle. Whether it's an ill-fitting saddle or they're just sore, that adds to that. The rider mounts. Now, if the rider isn't perfectly calm or the rider has something about the rider is concerning to the horse, it adds another level. So now we're right here. Rider mounts. Here we leave the yard. Now we just left all of the buddies. The wind picks up. Well, that wasn't doing that earlier, and it is now. What do you do about that? Carrier bag flaps in the hedge. So just like a grocery bag is flapping someplace, and the horse bolts. And you might look at this and just see this, where it says the bag flaps and the horse bolts. And you're like, that's so unexpected. It's like, but you're not seeing all of these other things that added up to that moment, and we blame the horse. Comfort zones. When we are working with our horse, it's up to us to gradually and carefully stretch the comfort zones. I love this quote. If we push too much, then we risk creating fear within the horse and crushing their confidence. If we push too little, then the horse doesn't reach its full potential and the confidence doesn't grow. Okay, so another quote. Let's see here. I've got some people commenting. Vereda says, hello from Montana. We ride bitless. I love bitless for gated and non-gated. Jan says, from Missouri, this book sounds like a good addition to my library. Deb says, hi from Massachusetts. So sad not be able to participate in your New Hampshire clinic. Hoping to audit, though. I hope you're there, Deb. It'd be great to meet you. Jill says, hi from Minnesota. Can't wait for the clinic. Hayla from West Virginia says, I plan to get there, at least bitless. Go for it. Joanne says, do you do free shaping? I do personally free shaping, and the book talks about it a little bit. And Chrissy says her timing is a work in progress. Everybody's timing is a work in progress. I thought I was good at clicker training until I had someone instruct me, and I was like, boy, I'm pretty bad at this. All right, let me just, okay, I'm gonna fast forward here. We're spending a lot of time on this. She talks about what do you do when everybody thinks you're crazy. There's a good section about that. Problem solving, the horse doesn't appear calm. So then she goes into different exercises. And I'm not going to go through them all because I'd really like for you to buy her book if this is interesting to you. Head forward. This is to teach your horse not to mug you or look for treats or turn his head to you all the time. Great exercise for that. She goes through that in pretty good detail. I love this one. This is one, whether you're going to do bridleless or bitless, teaching your horse to put their head up and away from the grass, both walking and under saddle. That's an excellent for most riders, including trail riders. She talks about environment. This one I love. Choose another day. If things aren't going well, it's windy, your horse is nervous, don't get on! Whether you're doing bridleless or not. Don't push it. Don't get injured just because you think you can tough it out. Stay safe. If the horse is telling you not to ride that day, don't ride that day. There you go. Good questions asked before you take the bridle off. And I'll say good questions to ask before you even get on. Like, is your horse in familiar settings? If not, how does he usually react to unfamiliar places? How is my horse feeling now? What stress signals is he giving? How's his body language? Good questions to ask no matter whether you ride with the bridle or not. All aboard. Okay, so then I'm going to skip ahead. She talks about tactile cues and then more exercises, specifically stopping, backing up, turning, and then both on the ground and mounted, and also a little bit of speed, and then how to stay safe doing all of these and how to use a Cordeo safely. And I'm just going to mention that she does have a Facebook page called it's right here. Her Facebook page, Beautiful Horsemanship. I will share a link in the description. So she goes through exercises on how to train the back up from the ground and the saddle and using a target. And I want to go ahead and show you some of this because I do a lot of this with a target with my mare, Serenity. So here we go. This is my mare, Serenity. The whip you see is my target stick. So I'm riding with no Cordeo, no saddle. And I've got food in my pouch. And I use that as a target. I want the target behind me when I'm not using it, mostly just teaching her forward. So here I'm asking her to turn to the right, and then I click. You can't hear it because I muted it, but I clicked right as she turned and followed the target, and I rewarded her for that. And I actually have quite a few of the videos. Some of these are already on this page for free, and there's even more of this whole process on my private training page, which I'll share a link in the description. But I just wanted you to see that I'm using the target for turning. And I have a couple other videos of Serenity as well to show you guys. So there's a turn to the right. She's following the target. Super easy. And you can train the halt and the backup and turning with just the target. It's super simple exercises and so fun to do. I really enjoyed using the target. Look at that turn. It's beautiful. I need to do more work with her on this, but just look at the progress. This is her early on rides. These are probably only the 7th ride bridleless, maybe earlier than that, maybe 5. I started teaching her to target from the ground and then hopped on her back. And I am riding in a large pasture. You don't have to ride in a pasture this big, but it's very big. She could absolutely leave. Look at all the grass that's there. She's, in really good condition. It's actually probably a month or 2 before she had her baby, which is why she looks like she has such a big belly. And I kept these rides very short. And once again, these rides and training should be short, and she talks about it. And here's just a little bit of the view. Asking for a little bit of speed and turn. So I asked her to speed up, and when she turned, I clicked and rewarded. Good. Ask her to turn and turn again. Add some speed, and then she turned. And we just started adding speed in this video. And then she stopped. That was really good right there. So you can see how literally I did this with a mare. She hasn't had a lot of riding time on her, enough that I know she's fairly safe, but just doing this with her was a lot of fun. Janet says, sounds pretty awesome book, lots of great information. I agree. Donna says, I started Liberty training because I realized he wasn't happy on the lunge as he prefers to be close to me. He's very food oriented, so I was just reading about mugging when you came on live. Perfect timing. Yeah, there's lots of information. I have a free video on how to keep a horse from mugging, so that's great. So, and I want to show you a couple other things. So we did Jackson. This is my horse Buck. Now, I'm just going to show you a little bit of that, and I want to go back to trust. It's super important to trust your horse. I did not know that Buck would ride bridleless till I just tried it. Now I did it carefully in an arena with the bridle on and just used the neck rope. And for this, I am using the neck rope, and you have to be careful because you can hurt the horse's trachea if you do it incorrectly. And she talks about that in her book. So feel free to, again, get the book, reference her warnings and safety, but I want you to see, this is a big pasture with obstacles, and this is a horse this is Buck. I sold this horse. He's phenomenal. If I ever get a chance to get him back, I will buy him and keep him for the rest of his life, because I did his training when he was young, and sold him, got him back, did his training, and I was planning to move to Texas and get married, so I sold him. I wish I would have kept him. He's amazing. But a lot of it is trusting yourself as a rider, trusting in the training, and then my friend Melanie, who does lots of bridleless, she does bridleless hunter jumper stuff and training. A big thing for her was, she said, just do it. Just take the bridle off and do it. Now, that's not a caveat. That's not me telling you guys to do it and be dangerous. You must be careful, of course. But if you don't ever try it, I did the prep work. This horse is responsive to leg. He's responsive. The training is there. But if you don't just take your time and just do it, then you'll never know. So a big part for me is the trust in the training that I've done. And it's helped me to trust my horses more. And this is only after a few bridleless rides that we're riding out in the open, and going over the logs, and he was just doing amazing. And I just want to show you this because he's just a normal horse. He wasn't started with clicker training. He was mostly just ridden as just a trail horse. He's not special like that. Like you have to start when they're babies. He just had good training and does really well. And we're going to go up on I'm going to fast forward a little bit. But this took trust too, to take him, like I knew he can do this, but to trust him to go on the obstacle and not rush. Very nice. And so I stopped up here and gave a treat, and you can see he's relaxed. Now, if there's a day where he wasn't this calm, I probably wouldn't do bridleless. Part of it is being smart and knowing when you can do this training and when you shouldn't. All right, we'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to just talk again and answer any questions we have here. Vereda says, do you teach her to turn off of your seat? Yeah, you absolutely can do that. This is the only way to train bridleless. This is a way. And I do teach her to turn off my seat. But most horses, if you sit on them and ask them to turn with your seat, they will not turn. The target is something you can train on the ground that transitions very well to under saddle. Kelly says, do you find when they click, they immediately stop to get the treat? Yes, that's how they're trained to do it. Again, research some clicker training. That is how clicker training works. They always get food when they hear that click, because the click means they did it right and food is coming. So yes, they always stop, and that is exactly what I'm asking them to do. Keep the questions coming if you have any more. We're going to be wrapping this up shortly. I want to show you this one just really quick. This is a really short video. So here's me riding Jackson bridleless, and Serenity's at Liberty. This is upping the ante, as you were, and working with these two next to each other. Jackson does amazing, especially in an arena. But pardon me again, I just have to trust. And then we're working on training Serenity. So there's a good stop. And again, I'm just showing this just for fun, just to get you inspired to go and do it. When I see videos like this, I'm like, I can do this with my horses. And maybe you're not going to do it with two horses, and that's totally fine. But I want you definitely to get inspired that any of these things are possible. Even if you just move toward bitless, this book will definitely help you be able to do that. And there's Jackson cantering, Serenity on the inside, staying right with me. Trying to make a little bit tighter of a turn, asking him to turn into Serenity, asking her to move over. Yeah, fun stuff. It's a lot of fun. And I love challenging myself and pushing myself as a rider and as a trainer, and that's what a lot of that does. Chrissy said her mare totally does it, stops when they hear the click. That's what you want them to do. Laura says, when I use stop and praise, my horse learns to anticipate it and stops on her own when she thinks it's time. Hold on. Oh, did she delete the comment? Okay. Stops. Okay, so it's okay that the horse stops. Just use your leg to ask her to keep going. Don't stop and reward her. A lot of horses will try to stop when they think they got it right, which is not a bad thing because they're trying to figure out what you want. Don't punish them to say, no, keep going. I generally don't have a problem once they understand, like for gating, that they like the gating, they like doing it, they don't stop all the time. If they are stopping all the time, definitely think to yourself, are you stopping enough? Is your horse asking for a break? Not telling you that that's what it has to be, but be aware. And again, this is not the only way to train. Bridleless riding using positive reinforcement by Claire Bruff is a way, and it's a way that I've used with Macaroni and Serenity and using the target training, and I really like it, and it's fairly simple. There are lots of ways you can get into trouble, of course, and there's a lot of safety things, and she addresses those. And that's why I do want to recommend her book to everybody, and I will share a link in the description. I am not making any money off of this if you buy it. I'm not getting anything. It's just there. Okay, so I'll reply to any questions. I'm going to leave you with this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If this was fun, feel free to share this. I really am enjoying learning and reading more books. I'm not sure what book it'll be next, but there'll be more. And I'm going to go with Buck, and I'll show you as he hops down, and I will leave you with this.